A lot of people say immersion is the best way to learn a language. And honestly, I understand why people say that. Immersion is powerful. Being surrounded by Japanese, reading it, listening to it again and again, and seeing how people actually use it in real life. That really is a great way to learn. So first, I want to make this thing clear. I'm not against immersion at all. I think immersion is one of the most important parts of language learning. But I also think a lot of beginners are only hearing half the story. People often say things like, just immerse, learn like a baby, your brain will figure it out. And yes, children do learn through immersion, but adults are not children. A child's brain and adult's brain are different. And also, a 2 or 3-year-old child does not speak perfect Japanese. The grammar is still messy. Their sentences are incomplete. They make mistakes all the time. And that is normal, right? Children take years to slowly build vocabulary, grammar, and natural speaking ability. So yes, they learn naturally, but they also learn very slowly with very easy input over a very long time. And there's another big difference too. Children start with super easy language, very simple words, very simple sentences, very simple conversations. But adults say, okay, I'm gonna learn like a child. And then 5 minutes later, they open Netflix, watch anime, listen to podcast, watch YouTube, or start a drama. And that's why I think so many beginners get frustrated. Because trying to learn through immersion without enough input is like walking into a forest without a map. You're surrounded by something real. You're inside the language, but you don't know where you are. Everything looks similar. Everything feels confusing. And after a while, you just feel lost. So if you really want to learn through immersion, you would probably need to start with very low level content. Baby books, very simple children's shows, or picture book read aloud videos for little kids. But for most adults, that is not very interesting. And honestly, not very efficient either. Because unless your family can suddenly start speaking baby level Japanese to you all day, or you can enter Japanese kindergarten tomorrow, that's just not reality. Adults do not start with kindergarten level input. They usually start with content that is way too difficult. That is a huge problem. Because when the input is too hard, immersion does not feel natural. It just feels like noise. And again, it's like walking deeper and deeper into the forest with no map. You hear things, you notice things, you maybe catch 1 or 2 words, but you still don't know where you are. And after a while, you start thinking, am I actually learning anything? Or am I just suffering in another language? And honestly, I know that feeling very well because I had a similar experience when I was learning English. I tried running through movies and dramas. I listened again and again. Sometimes I even used translation tools while listening. But honestly, it didn't really go in. Why? Because I didn't have enough foundation. Maybe I could catch a few words. Maybe I could understand a general mood. Maybe I could guess what was happening, but I didn't really understand the grammar, the sentence structure, the flow, why certain words were being used in certain ways. So the problem wasn't that immersion was bad. The problem was that I was trying to use immersion without enough foundation and without the basics. Immersion can easily just become background noise. You hear it, but you don't really process it deeply. You might pick up some words, but the system behind the language, it's still unclear. And I think this is especially true for Japanese. Because if you don't understand some basic foundation first, like a vocabulary, basic sentence structure, basic verb forms, particles, then Japanese is very hard to break apart. You may hear the sentence, but you don't know where one idea ends and the next one starts. You may recognize a word, but you still don't know why ni is there, why de is there, why the verb changed, or what nuance the sentence has. And there's another problem too. Even if you start to understand some things when you listen, that does not always mean you can use them when you speak. A lot of learners have this experience. You hear something and think, yeah, I kind of understand that. But then, when you actually try to speak, they suddenly realize, wait, I can't say it. And I think this happens for a very simple reason. Understanding something when you hear it and building it by yourself are not the same thing. If you still don't understand the basics, like why this particle is used, why the sentence is structured that way, or how the verb changes, then it becomes much more harder to make your own sentence. So yes, immersion can help you recognize the language, but without some foundation, it is much harder to turn that recognition into real output. And if you can't see those things, then immersion becomes much less efficient. So for me, foundation is not the opposite of immersion. Foundation is what makes immersion useful. Foundation is the map. Without a map, the forest feels confusing. You walk in, but you don't really know where you are. You may still move forward, but very slowly and with a lot of frustration. But once you have some basic knowledge, even just a little, the same forest starts to make more sense. You start noticing path, you start recognizing landmarks, you start understanding where you are. And same thing happens with immersion. Once you learn some basics, everything starts to connect. You hear something and think, oh, that's the particle I studied. Oh, that's the verb form I learned. Oh, that's why this sounds natural. Oh, that's how this grammar works in real life. And that's when immersion becomes really powerful. Because now it's not just a noise anymore. Now your brain has something to connect to. Now you're still in the forest, but at least you have a map. Before, everything looked confusing. Now, little by little, the language started to make sense. So this is why I don't think the answer is grammar only. But I also don't think the answer is immersion only. Because grammar can make your Japanese feel too mechanical. But immersion only, especially in the beginning, can leave you lost for too long. So for me, the best method is not choosing one side. It's using both in the right order and in the right way. Build a foundation first, then do immersion, then try to use the language, and repeat. Foundation helps you understand immersion. Immersion helps you see the foundation in real life. And output helps you turn it into something you can actually use. That's why I believe that best way is this. Foundation, immersion, output, repeat. So yes, immersion is amazing. But for beginners, immersion works much better when you understand the basics first. That does not make immersion weaker. It makes immersion finally useful. So no, I'm not saying don't immerse. Don't send beginners into a forest without a map and then act surprised when they get lost. Give them a map, give them some basics, give them something they can actually understand. Then immersion becomes powerful and then growth becomes much faster. Enjoy the process. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. I want to share something with you. If you're studying Japanese alone and feeling lost, you're not the only one. That's exactly why I created Japanese Lounge by Ted Sensei. It's a learning home for true beginners where you get a clear roadmap, step-by-step lessons, live classes, Q&A, worksheets, feedback from me, and a place to learn alongside other students. So instead of guessing what to study next, you can start building real Japanese step by step. If that sounds like what you need, check the link in the description.